What's up, guys? Today's lesson is on this obnoxiously red fish, the sockeye salmon. The first thing you might be wondering about is the name sockeye. It does have eyes, but they aren't socks. In fact, I don't see a sock anywhere. Yep, that's right, you just got pranked in the Big 26. Yeah, that's embarrassing. So if there aren't any socks, where does it get its name from? Well, it's pretty stupid. The name sockeye actually comes from a terrible translation attempt of the word I think is pronounced suck-keg, likely from Halkomelem, a British Columbia's native Coast Salish language meaning red fish. But with that mistranslation out of the way, the sockeye salmon's scientific name is Oncorhynchus nerka, the genus name coming from the Greek words of this, meaning a mass that bends, and that, meaning snout. For the species name, nerka is the Russian word for the anadromous fish. Anadromous fish being species that live in the ocean but move back to freshwater to breed. In comparison to other species of Pacific salmon, the sockeye salmon is on the smaller end, being 1.5 to 2.5 feet long and weighing 4 to 15 pounds. However, there is a type of sockeye salmon that's completely landlocked to live only in lakes, called kokanee. These salmon rarely grow past 1.2 feet. Maybe the ocean's got a secret growing life hack. Now I have to come clean. I may or may not have pranked you again. Kinda. This big bright red color you see here, they don't look like this all the time. They only do when it's time to breed at their spawning areas. When the sockeye salmon is in the sea, it looks just like any other fish. It'll have shiny silver sides, a white belly, and a green-blue top, giving them another common name of the blueback salmon. There can also be small black speckling on its back, but there aren't any big spots like on other Pacific salmon, nor are there any spots on the fins and tail. As for the salmon you see here, when it's at its freshwater spawning area, its body will turn bright red and its head will turn green, giving it yet another common name as the red salmon. Males particularly will also develop a humped back and hooked jaws with tiny teeth. Now out of the three common names I've mentioned here, I think I like sockeye salmon the most. The other two are just kinda boring. Like red salmon? Not cool. Sockeye salmon? Very cool. Even if it doesn't make sense. And for any salmon chefs out there, if we cut open the sockeye salmon, we can see its bright red-orange meat that's supposed to have the strongest flavor of all Pacific salmon. Now I'm a bit of a salmon connoisseur, so maybe someday I'll be the judge of that. The sockeye salmon can be commonly found in the ocean along North America's west coast, from northern Alaska to northern Oregon, though apparently some individual salmon have been seen as far south as northern California. Some populations are also located at the very east of Russia near the Bering Sea, but when it's the breeding season, sockeye salmon can be found as far inland as Midwest Idaho. There are also a number of landlocked populations in other areas too, such as Alaska, Yukon Territory, and British Columbia in Canada, along with Washington, Oregon, and California. For sockeye salmon in the ocean though, they can be found at depths from 15 to 33 meters deep. But one of my sources said they could be found as deep as 250 meters deep. Now that's pretty deep for some salmon to be living in, so I don't know about the validity of this info. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, couldn't tell you which. In general, sockeye salmon eat a lot of zooplankton, especially when they're living in the ocean, but they'll also eat small fishes and sometimes even squid there. However, in the lakes, they'll also eat insects, water fleas, and ostracods, which are also called sea shrimp for their appearance. Actually, the reason why sockeye salmon turn red during the spawning season is because they eat plankton and krill rich with a carotenoid pigment called astaxanthin. It's like how flamingos are pink from eating algae and brine shrimp, also rich with carotenoids. Besides this though, there's not much else to talk about the sockeye salmon's feeding habits. That's kinda it. Its life cycle, on the other hand, is pretty sad. Pretty much, it lives to breed once and dies. When it's time for a sockeye salmon to breed, being after around 5 years when it's now sexually mature, it'll return to its freshwater lakes during the summer to fall. For sockeye salmon, size does matter since natural selection favors the salmon that are big. Bigger females means more plus bigger eggs and better capabilities of protecting them. On the other hand, bigger and brighter males means they'll be the dominant males in the lake, being able to mate with many females since they're polygynous. Bro, wait, this is just the stuff Andrew Tate fanboys believe. They'd probably think of them as like alpha salmon. What foolish people. As for how the actual breeding process goes, female sockeye salmon will first choose a spot and dig a nest in the ground, called a wren. While they build their nests, Females will have a dominant male by their side along with a few subordinate males. Some of these subordinate males might not even get to mate at all. Like the oldest sockeye salmon found was 8 years old. Dude couldn't get laid for like 3 or 4 years in a row. But at this point of nest building, females can be aggressive towards other females and subordinate males, and males in general will be aggressive towards each other. Once the female has finished building her nest, she'll go into her nest with the dominant male who will come close to her. The couple will then begin mating and release their eggs and sperm, but one or more subordinate males can come close to the female and join in the spawning. Maybe that's what the 8-year-old salmon should have done. Not the brightest of the bunch, it seems. Afterwards, the female will cover the eggs and nest with more gravel using her tail, and move further upstream to dig another nest. It'll take about 3 to 5 days before the female has finally released all of her 2,000 to 5,000 eggs, using around 3 to 5 nests to do so while being able to breed with multiple dominant males. After the breeding process is done, all adult sockeye salmon will start rotting while they're still alive and eventually die within a few weeks. Well, besides the one that didn't get to spawn. Hey, maybe those guys are actually lucky. I'd say living is better than rotting alive. But the dead salmon are still very useful to the environment though, since as they decay, they release nitrogen and phosphorus for the rest of life to use, becoming meals for animals like bears and eagles, or releasing nutrients for plant life to absorb. As for the eggs, it'll be around 6 to 9 weeks before they hatch. Nice. After hatching, the baby sockeye salmon are known as fry and will spend the first 1 to 3 years of their lives in freshwater before migrating to the ocean as smolts, usually during the spring. For the next 1 to 3 years of their lives in the ocean, the sockeye salmon smolts will grow very quickly and eat until they become sexually mature and ready to mate. Then they'll go back to freshwater, breed, and die. What an incredible life to live. According to the IUCN Red List, the sockeye salmon is classified as a least concerned species. Unfortunately though, populations on the west coast of the US, not including Alaska, have been continuously decreasing for a number of issues. Because of overfishing, habitat degradation, pollution, and climate change, some of these populations have been listed under the Endangered Species Act. On the other hand, their habitat in Alaska is pretty much clean, so populations are overall increasing or are in equilibrium. They are the most economically important species of salmon in the state after all, so it does make sense. Doesn't mean they're completely safe though, since the issues I mentioned just earlier can be future big issues for Alaskan populations of sockeye salmon. But anyway, that's about it for today's lesson. Subscribe for more fish facts, and I'll see you next time.